Why do I think the Democrats lost?
You don't see this as a breakdown in society though, like open vigilantism. I'm just curious. How come you thought that the Rittenhouse case was not a clear one, even though he was physically getting assaulted?
We see as Republicans persistently praise violence.
I mean, that was what terrified me. Is I'm just like, oh, this is a progressive coup.
Opens it up for them though, because they're going to walk into the next term with, a wildly unpopular president.
Howdy.
What's going on? What's your take?
I mean, honestly, I think this is good for you because now the Democrats will get to do what they love to do, which is complain about Trump 24/7. So, like, now you don't have to worry about like being challenged for your beliefs because now you get just because you're an opposition party now.
Sure. Do you have a debate?
Yeah. Why do you think the Democrats lost?
What do I think the Democrats
Like, not just the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
Why do I think the Democrats lost? In large part, it's because the Democrats have largely abandoned any semblance of a coherent party platform. It's a platform that the other people through various different states can use to target their states. Very difficult to run a corporatist campaign on a national level. So that's pretty much why.
Yeah. Essentially, Democrats are just a big coalition instead of a coherent ideology.
I would say that the corporatist elements in the Democratic Party are the deciding factor. That if the Democrats actually adopted what Democrats want, this would be lights out for the Republican. This wouldn't have been close.
Corporatist. So I'm taking you're a progressive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your mic's
So,
really loud.
I mean,
really, really coming in really hot.
oh, okay. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. I just moved a little farther from my mouth. I mean, you should be celebrating, right? You have your class war going on right now in front of us, and you're seeing the breakdown in society as people essentially immortalize vigilantism. I mean, shouldn't you be happy about that at least? You can now fight the power from outside.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I'm not sure.
Yeah, now that the progressives are openly endorsing vigilantism with the United Health CEO shooting.
Republicans are too.
Hard to say. Hard to say. I mean,
No,
I think anyone that sits.
Ben Shapiro's arguing with his followers about it. I think at best, most people just didn't care. Like, I'm in the I don't really care coalition. I'm not gonna give. I'm not gonna give mental real estate to someone that didn't give mental real estate to the people he killed. It's kind of this is what people are. People are frustrated at it, and
You don't see this as a breakdown in society though, like open vigilantism.
a breakdown of society is open vigilantism. When you give people no other option, this is what will happen. This is what happens throughout human history.
All due respect, though, that's the belief system of every person that commits political terror. You know what I mean? And whether it's right wing or left wing or
No, that's more
you
like
know,
talking about a causal factor. If you're saying that people are like, they have their own beliefs about what tyranny is, and yeah, then I would say yeah. And I would think that's the problem with the UAC shooting. Is like, then anybody with a gripe can go out and do this, and some people on their side are going to find it's justified and some people aren't. But if you're on the right, you have no room to talk on this.
how so? I mean, between the assassination attempts on
Republicans,
Trump,
because done by Republicans, because Republicans consistently praise political violence. Consistently. There's not even like an argument here. When you're talking about George Floyd, which I didn't think even should have been political, his death was praised. When you're talking about the defense of people murdering people when it comes to black people and the police, when you're talking about, any other forms of violence when it comes to that, Republicans endorse it. January 6th, the list goes on.
I mean,
Kyle Rittenhouse, Daniel Penny. Doesn't even matter the reason at first, just that it supports their ideological goals.
yeah, I mean, let's I mean, the Floyd case, I mean, he's in jail, so it doesn't really matter. The system works, so to speak.
Right,
But
but
on the Rittenhouse case,
Republicans praised it. That's the point. Is that they praised it, they laughed about it, they joked about it, they consistently weaponized that to be like, this is
yeah.
good.
But I'm just curious. How come you thought that the Rittenhouse case was not a clear one, even though he was physically getting assaulted? You know,
I don't
obviously it
think
might have been escalation of force.
as a gun
But
owner, I don't think that it's a clear. I really don't think that he should have been let off for it. Period. 17-year-old goes there, and the real reason is because Republicans they talk about civil war endlessly. They talk about civil war on a persistent, nonstop basis. They talk about doing exactly what Kyle Rittenhouse did. So if you hadn't asked me, he didn't go there just to be like, oh yeah, I'm going there to protect. No, he didn't. Illusions of it. In fact, you know what's funny? Me and my cousin disagreed on this, right? On Kyle Rittenhouse. And we were driving around, going hunting. We were out going hunting, driving around. And it's like private land or whatever. And he goes, I'm going to say this. I don't want you to beat me up over it. He goes, I wasn't with you on the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. But seeing that kid out in public and the way he acts, I believe fundamentally now that he went there to do exactly what he did. So that's the thing. But also, I just want to point out, it's not that, right, that he got off with it, et cetera, et cetera. It's that at first, when it first happened, Republicans started defending it by making shit up. They started defending it by making shit up. Molotov cocktails, and they go after people's record or whatever else because that's what they have to do to try and justify it, not the facts of the case. It's post hoc, going like, it's called post hoc justification. Well, this guy had a criminal record, therefore, you know what I mean?
oh, I mean, look, that's the main reason why Penny got away with it. You know what I mean? Because the guy who got jacked was like 36 cases against him. I mean, at the end of the day, your previous
I know,
criminal
but
history
nobody
definitely
knows.
plays a role.
Nobody knows that. I don't know that can be included in court. I don't know what happened with the court, but typically no. I don't know what happened in that court case. I'm not the knowledgeable person on it. Couldn't tell you. But
Yeah, no worries.
we see as Republicans persistently praise violence, right? They call for civil wars. They laughed when Paul Pelosi got hit with a hammer, like made up homophobic remarks towards him. Like that's what we watch from the right.
So Tommy, can we at least agree on the basic thing that political violence is not desirable?
Yeah, political violence is definitely not desirable.
Cool. That's all I wanted to hear from you, man. Because unfortunately, right now, a lot of people I'm talking to in the left don't agree with us on that basic concept, and I'm on the same way. When it's the right wing condoning violence, it's a tragedy too. But
I understand the frustration of people, and my response is this: like, I don't justify it like at all. I don't care because he doesn't deserve my care. But if we allow people to go out and just be vigilantes on every fucking situation, every bizarro gripe that a Republican has, they're going to use to justify it. So,
yeah, I agree with you. And I think the next is you're going to start seeing doctors get popped. If they don't give the surgery or they accidentally hurt someone, they're going to blame doctors.
We've seen that. But yeah, it opens it up for free reign. And that's my concern about the Trump administration is you've had people outright call for open violence, and now you have people going, try something. But because people can't disconnect themselves from the reality they actually live in from what is fantasy.
What's the open violence you're seeing? I mean, are you trying to say like the January 6th stuff, or there's a different
there's
example?
January 6th. You can look at like the right wing militias reached out to Trump and said they would be his party enforcement. They would enforce the deportation rules. You're watching that kind of stuff, and it's not just that, right? It's a process of conditioning. Like, that's the problem. It's a process of conditioning people to believe that things like January 6th are normal, that they're okay, to believe, et cetera, right? When we're talking about the shooting with the UHC dude, Brian Thompson, everybody shrugged. Like, it's like, oh, okay, why do I care? Right? Because we already know inherently dude's a bad dude, right? when but like when you're talking about January 6th, you watch Republicans come out and they're like, no, 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 this is bad. This is bad. I watched it, people, those same people on TikTok, and then they turn around and they go, ah, wait, actually, you know what? You know what? You know what? It's actually not that. It's, if we think about it, if they're Black Lives Matter, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's that conditioning of people to believe this.
In this, I didn't quite follow. So you're saying people condemn it, but then they'll secretly defend it?
No, I'm saying that there's a conditioning process of Republicans over time convincing people that these things are normalized. The problem is January 6th, but there's a larger problem, which is the normalization of political violence, the normalization of this type of behavior. Because that type of behavior, if done by like Al Qaeda, would have been met with absolute irate insanity by the Republicans, or if it was done by the Democrats, but it's not. It's done by them. So they have to try and justify why this thing is good. And so there's a process, right? There's a process of going after people and going after these ideas where they're beating it into people's head. Well, this isn't that bad. And then you have this moral degradation in the country that leads to more political violence.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing I always stress to people. You know, just because you think your violence is justified, you better believe the other side is going to meet it with the same energy. So, you know, violence goes both ways. It's not like you're the only one that's inflicting it.
Right. I just want to say
And
that this dude that shot the guy, by the way, he was a right-leaning libertarian. Like, that's the best way to characterize his beliefs. There was some crossover, but the crossover for healthcare had to do with, and I'm not saying that you know it's like politically motivated by progressive or whatever, but he had issues with the healthcare system. His mom was denied, which led him to believe that this was, you know, a horrible thing that needed to be fixed.
yeah, and you know, one thing I'll point out though is a lot of the chronic pain that his mother experienced probably wouldn't be experienced if we didn't have the regulations on pain drugs that we have. I mean, that was something that came around, you know, because of all the opioid abuse that was happening. And
Yeah.
you're going to continue to see people that aren't getting the proper pain medication that they want, and it's going to drive them insane. You know,
Yeah, I know that's
it's another
become
story
that's become a big issue for people with chronic pain is the availability of drugs to help. Yeah, and that's not something that's addressed nearly enough.
yeah. And you know, I got to ask, do you think that the Republicans are going to be able to deliver, or do you think that there's going to be a factionalism and it's just going to become like a very watered down administration like the first term? Or do you think
They'll
that the
get
base is unified?
they're not unified. They'll get some of the stuff that's more notable, like voting rights. They'll mess with those. They'll mess with a bunch of things that help them across the board. But and you know they'll get those things done. But when it comes to these things like abortion bans or whatever, probably don't have the votes to do it. It would be insane. In fact, Lindsey Graham suggested a 15-week ban, and Republicans were like in shock. So I don't see it as being, you know,
Nuke the filibuster? You think we're going to see it?
no. I think it needs 60 to be nuked, right?
I
But
think
you
there's a
can.
way to nuke it with 50.
There's a way to get around. It's called the nuclear option, and it's a way to get around the filibuster. There's reconciliation, which you use, which has to do with finances. But there's also another one where they can use procedural rules to force through votes without 60. But nobody wants to use it because everybody's like, well, but will the Republicans use it? Probably, yeah. They'll probably use the nuclear option. But that opens it up for them, though, because they're going to walk into the next term with, you know, a wildly unpopular president. So,
You're saying
yeah,
in 2028?
yeah, 2028 and then in 2030. Or no, sorry, 2026 and then 2028. You're going to walk into those midterms into the presidential election with a really, really unpopular presidential candidate. And I mean, it's not even anything
I
to
mean,
argue about. Donald Trump's been at 42% approval rating pretty much forever. He only goes up a little bit right around the elections.
oh, yeah. I mean, look, I don't think any president is probably ever going to get above 50% ever again, in my opinion.
I think
I think we're.
a populist would.
I mean, I think there's a reason why, the Nancy Pelosi's already knifing the AOCs. I don't see the progressives taking over the Democratic Party personally, but we'll see.
Do I see it? I don't know. I'm not sure yet because the Democrats are plotting and planning. The progressives are, while the Democrats are infighting with the progressives. Do I think a progressive candidate will come in? I don't know. I mean, there's not like there's a huge amount of options. Maybe like a moderate progressive, someone that's slightly populist, ticks enough 4 or 5 of the populist boxes, might do it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Kamala was the progressive pick. I mean, so to speak. I mean, she was a pretty progressive senator.
She would have, if she would have ran on her record, if she would have ran on her actual beliefs, as opposed to trying to hide it from everyone, she probably would have won. If she would have ran on universal health care, she almost certainly would have won.
Yeah.
Like those types, but she didn't want to do that because, our politicians seem to know more than the American people.
Yeah, what was up with that? I mean, like, her record was undeniably, like, really fucking far left. I mean, just her father, her voting record. I mean, that was what terrified me. Is I'm just like, oh, this is a progressive coup by the Democrats because they're not like, this is the only way the progressives are going to win. They're going to have a coup, and they're not going to even have a primary, and then they're going to like install a progressive candidate, and then she turns around and acts like Hillary Clinton 2.0.
She's not that progressive. She's not, but yes, she did act like Hillary Clinton, but she's not that progressive. I mean, like she would be considered a moderate right leaning in a lot of countries.
But
I don't think she went
for
left
the
enough.
U.S. political system.
Because here's the thing, right? Like people don't understand this. They think that like the country's divided right down the middle in politics, and that's true because it's all the show, right? If you get down to what people support, they support left ideas. When you ask them in a vacuum, when you don't attach a name to it, they support progressive policies. The problem is Democrats have to appear, favorable to corporations, and Republicans have to appear favorable to whatever else they're favorable to. So nobody touches up on those issues that people actually care about. So.
Yeah, and look, I'm going to be honest. I mean, the messaging on the Democratic side with the inflation was pretty atrocious. I mean, the game plan seemed to be to just deny that it was happening.
I think that I mean honestly, if she had had a more coherent, because I had seen that during the debate, and I was like, that was a really terrible fucking answer. And I guess that resonated more with people than I thought it was going to. But yeah, she should have had a more coherent answer prepared. Sorry, there's a lot of background noise.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's be real. At the end of the day, people really only care about basic things that involve their direct life. Most people are not interested in, like, fringe dividing issues. They care about inflation, they care about the economy, and they care about taxes. And they probably do care about healthcare, but no one actually gave healthcare any attention in this election cycle at all.
Yeah, none. And I think that was a big mistake. So basically, you have not any real reason for people to show up. So, anyway.
Yeah, not enough fighting between us, but have a good night and take care.
All right, take care.